Hi, I'm Susan Coe at the National Center for Child Traumatic Stress. I'm here to share with you today about a new product that we have, the Road to Recovery, supporting children with intellectual and developmental disabilities who have experienced trauma. I'm going to share this presentation in two parts. Part one will be an overview of the content of the toolkit, and part two will walk us through the layout of the binder. So starting on part one, first, you should know that the structure of the training is that it is divided into 6 modules, and each of the modules are designed to be developed or trained on together over the course of 2 days, or you could choose to use them flexibly, module by module, over the course of many days. Module 1 is setting the stage. Module 2 is development, IDD, and trauma. Module 3 is on traumatic stress responses in children with IDD. Module 4 is Child and Family Well-Being and Resilience. Module 5 is on IDD and trauma-informed services and treatment. And Module 6 is on provider self-care. The target audience for this training is providers defined broadly. So not just mental health clinicians or trauma-focused clinicians, but all providers who work with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so we expect that there will be an overlap with some people having more expertise in the world of IDD, others having more expertise in the world of trauma, and others having more expertise in the world of mental health. But we do expect and hope that this training could be beneficial to all of those audiences. The training is based on 10 essential messages that were more aspirational in nature and developed by our trauma and IDD expert panel who helped develop this toolkit. The training is really based on these messages, and as we'll see as we walk through this, much of the toolkit and training content stems from these essential messages. So essential message 1 is know that there's hope. Recovery from traumatic experiences is possible. Number 2, recognize that a child with IDD may have had a traumatic experience which can have profound effects. Number 3, recognize a child's developmental level and how IDD and traumatic experiences are affecting his or her functioning. Number 4, utilize a developmental lens when making meaning of a child's traumatic experiences and responses. Number 5, recognize that in the aftermath of trauma, understanding traumatic stress responses is the first step in helping children regain their sense of safety, value, and quality of life. The last 5 essential messages of working with children with IDD who have experienced trauma are: number 6, utilize an IDD and trauma-informed, child-centered approach to support both the child and the family. Number 7, help parents or caregivers and other professionals in the child's life strengthen protective factors. Number 8, partner with agencies and systems to ensure earlier and more sustained access to services. Number 9, ensure that trauma-informed, child-centered services, treatments, and systems drive the recovery plan. And lastly, practice ongoing self-care in order to increase effectiveness in delivering high-quality support, services, and treatment. So with each of these modules, in addition to the essential messages which were the basis for the entire training, we have learning objectives for each module. The learning objectives for Module 1 were really about setting the stage. So this module is about setting the framework, identifying models, explaining why children with IDD are actually at increased risk for traumatic experiences, and basically providing a rationale for why a toolkit like this is important. Module 2 is on development, IDD, and trauma, and the learning objectives in Module 2 are to really help providers understand how to define IDD and various types of disabilities, to discuss these different developmental tasks across typical development, and then how IDD and traumatic experiences may impact and disrupt that typical development, and then to identify those areas in which children's functioning may be impacted and how to help children in those areas, how those adaptations must be made. I should just note here that one of the challenges of developing the toolkit is that we recognize that the scope of the toolkit was going to be limited in that we couldn't go through every single different type of disability or identify every single different type of trauma. Obviously, that is an impossible task. So what we hope to do with this toolkit is really start to provide a basic foundation on understanding how trauma and IDD intersect, why children with IDD may be at increased risk for traumatic experiences, how to identify those children, and what to do about it. So this is seen as more of a basic foundational training, and we hope that as providers receive this training, they will then go on to receive additional training as well. Module 3 is on traumatic stress responses in children with IDD, and the learning objectives of this module are really to understand what is child traumatic stress, how do we define it, how is it different from PTSD, and then using the NCTSN's 12 core concepts for understanding traumatic stress responses in children and families to understand how children are responding and reacting to these traumatic experiences, and then how having IDD or their intellectual and developmental disabilities may also be impacting those responses. Module 4 is on child and family well-being and resilience, and the learning objectives for Module 4 are to really understand the impact on parents and caregivers, on learning about their child's traumatic experience and helping to identify factors, protective factors, to enhance the child's well-being, the family's well-being, resilience, and recovery. An important part of this toolkit and the development of this toolkit was that we really wanted to focus on how to help providers help children with IDD have the most meaningful and significant life. That it wasn't going to be enough to say, well, this is good enough. You know, this child has IDD. We shouldn't worry about them achieving at this higher level. You know, we really wanted to say a child with IDD should be able to experience and have as great a quality of life as any other child. And how do we help when there is a setback, such as a traumatic experience that's being experienced by the child and family? How do we help support those parents? Some of the frameworks that are identified in this module are for promoting healing and a protective environment to help create this safe and meaningful life, and to identify family-informed, child-centered planning techniques to help children realize those hopes and dreams. Module 5 is about IDD and trauma-informed services and treatment. The learning objectives for this module really focus on how to enhance those protective factors of children, again, but through the use of appropriate trauma-informed services and treatment. How can we help parents identify those appropriate trauma-informed services and treatment, and how do they obtain them? What are some screening and assessment tools that can be adapted for children with IDD? And strategies for adapting the core components of trauma-informed treatments for children with IDD. So we know that many children with IDD, part of their intellectual and developmental disabilities may make it so that communication issues or other things make it difficult to participate in traditional talk therapy, for example. Therapies that are based much more on talking, narrative kind of components need to be adapted for these children. And then identifying strategies for partnering with agencies and cross-system collaboration. Module 6 is on provider self-care, and the learning objectives for Module 6 are really to help providers recognize the challenges of working with children with IDD and their families. There are many gifts involved in working with these families, but it is also challenging due to the high level of collaboration that is required, the many medical and other providers that are often involved in a family's life, which require additional collateral work. So identifying how burnout develops, understanding what secondary traumatic stress is, and recognizing how providers can take care of themselves in order to better support children with IDD and their families.